with strength and spirit seize the day. Where there's a will, there's a way. Feeling pain-free, active and free. A healthy future for you and me.
So for anyone that doesn't know me, I'm Will Moore, so I own Moore Performance. So we're talking about our back pain and sciatica. So a bit about me to start with. So I was born and bred in St Ives, just down the road. I've always been a keen rugby player. So I played rugby all my life, and then things started to fall off. Got lots and lots of injuries, and saw lots of very interesting consultants and surgeons and physios and all sorts of people over the years, which got me interested in doing what I do now. So then I studied to help fix people. So once I worked out I was never going to be a professional rugby player, I then went down the route of helping people. And I managed to end up working in professional rugby. So I worked for Gloucester was my first rugby union club. So I was there for about 3 years, and then London Broncos was the last club that I worked for. So 6 years in professional rugby, looking after some of those very big rugby players that I aspired to be, but very glad that I didn't end up making it that way, because yes, they are very broken. So then after that, I then started up Moore Performance, almost 10 years old, so next year it will be 10 years. It's just round the corner, just at the bottom of the hill in St Ives on the industrial estate. So from my treatment room we can actually see, I think it's in that direction, I think we can just see the paddle courts from the window. So we are very close, so yeah, just round the corner. So yeah, almost 10 years of helping various people with various problems. And then in 2024 I published a book. Book's called The Weekend Warrior, so it's to try and help people fit sport around a busy life, so family, work, kids, grandkids, and just a busy life. So to stay pain-free and active around just normal stuff. So there's loads of tips and bits in there. And it reached #1 on Amazon on the healthcare category, so it was a bestseller on Amazon, which is pretty cool. And then during the week, me and the rest of the team, so mainly the rest of the team, work with hundreds of people on back pain. So back pain and sciatica is always the most common thing we see. They say 1 in 2 people are going to suffer with back pain and knee treatment in their lifetimes. That was quite a while ago that stat came out, so I think it's probably more than that. So it's definitely the most common thing we see. Hence where a lot of the research in a lot of these treatment things come from. So we'll talk a little bit about it today. So Moore Performance. So what Moore Performance is to give access to care that people deserve. So we obviously know we've got a brilliant NHS, it's free, it's great, but for something like this, it definitely has its downsides. So the point of Moore Performance is to give people access to the care that they need in a timely manner, so nice and quickly, for the right person. So we're not dictated by pathways, by tick boxes, by processes. We are dictated by what people's goals are, what people's aims are. So whether that's all the way from being an elite athlete or is just to walk down the stairs pain-free in the morning. So we're dictated what people need, and we make sure we try and get there as quickly as we can. So that's the point of Moore Performance. There are some fancy photos there, but I don't know why it's not working. No, my photos aren't working at all, but fine. So we've got 3 clinics, so 1 in St Ives, so as I mentioned, over that way I believe, 1 in Manchester, and then 1 in Cambridge. St Ives was the first one, and then the other ones have been developed over the years. So as we're a small group, does anyone want to share a little bit of any back pain problems, just to make sure we cover any specifics? As it's a small group, happy to be as in depth with anyone that wants to ask. Yeah.
I've got stenosis in the lower back, which doesn't give me back pain, but my legs ache when I walk in the morning.
Yeah.
It particularly, I live just the other side of the bridge, old bridge in St Ives, and as you start to go up, you feel it.
Yes.
I can walk it off during the day. When I play golf, which I still do, I take 2 paracetamol and 2 ibuprofen,
Yeah.
preceded by something for my stomach.
The most important one.
I try not to take anything on other days.
Yeah.
If I'm bad, I take the paracetamol.
Fantastic.
I've been at the back scan and I saw the consultant, who wasn't a surgeon, and he told me he felt I clearly got something, but I should avoid operations.
Yeah.
Because he said they're not very good at it. Very encouraging.
It's always encouraging from a surgeon, isn't it?
Very nice and very young and very funny. And,
Yeah.
It's been better in the summer when it's warm.
Yeah.
I can still play golf completely painlessly. Doesn't hurt when I turn. I still garden and carry watering cans about. I still do all that. We have 4 flights of stairs in our house. But I don't know what to do. I'd quite like to be able to play golf without the pills.
Absolutely, yeah. Fantastic. I'll make sure we cover some bits on that, and if not, we can have a chat afterwards. But yeah, perfect. Anyone else quickly want to say what this?
I hurt my back rowing when I was 21.
Yeah.
And it's always been troubling ever since, on and off. And I use the old ibuprofen from time to time, like Roger.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try and stretch and yeah.
What did you do to it? Do you know what you did when you were...
Well, I had an MRI and apparently I had a prolapse disc.
Fine.
But I have not had surgery. It was not recommended. Done a lot of physio at the time and exercises, but not so much now. I try just to stretch
Just
it.
to manage it.
Yeah.
Fine. Perfect. Okay, cool. So yeah, we'll definitely cover some bits and all that. Hopefully it'll be helpful. But if we don't cover anything, then I'd hang around a bit and yeah.
I might have arthritis in the pelvis and the lower spine.
Okay. Yeah.
I also have it in my foot and my ankle.
Fine.
That's not my back.
Fine.
Too much
Yeah.
4 flights of stairs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, fair play.
We do.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we cover some bits on all of that. But as I say, if we don't, then I can hang around and have a chat. I've not got anything on afterwards. So if anyone wants to have a chat, feel free to stay around. So your back. So your back is an incredibly complicated area. So I'm just going to do a quick whistle-stop tour of what your back is. So this is a model of your spine. So your back is made out of kind of 4 main components. There are lots of other ones, but these are the 4 main ones that I'll go through. So the first one is your vertebrae. So your vertebrae are the bones. So you've got lots of bones that fit together, and it works like a spring. So there's not one joint in your back. There's lots. They all move slightly, and that's what creates the movement. So each of those bones are really important in their own right. We're mainly going to talk about the lower back, but your back itself goes all the way up to the base of your skull, and then all the way down to your tailbone. So it always goes further than everyone thinks. Everyone thinks that when you get to the sort of the top of your pelvis, where your trousers sit, that's where your back finishes. Actually, you can see from this that what we class as our back actually goes all the way down to our tailbone, which is obviously quite low. So the bones are the first bit. They're quite obvious. They're obviously the big white bits. And then in between them, we have the discs. Lots of people talk about the discs. We've heard it loads. We've obviously just heard about disc bulges, herniated discs, prolapse discs, all of this jazz. The discs are the little clear bits that are in between here. So we have these discs. They're kind of shock absorbers. So they're like a rubber washer that sits in between every bone. What these do is it allows our vertebrae, so it allows the bone to actually move. They're soft, and they should be soft, to move in either direction and allow us to properly work. they're talked about like a donut. So they do have what we call a nucleus in the middle. So when we describe them as a jam donut. So the clear bit is the outside of it, but inside we have this nucleus. So when someone talks about a prolapsed disc or a herniated disc, that is when the nucleus in the middle gets pushed out, and you get pushed out into various different places. So if you ever see models like this, you'll always see one of them with a weird little red bulge out, and that is what we kind of talk about as a herniated disc. That's always an example. So if you ever look at any models, that is an abnormal one. They should all look like that. The next bit is your pelvis. So I always class it in the same bit, because most people can have pelvis problems or lower back problems, and it's always linked together. So our pelvis is the ring around it, so it's just the bones that sit around it. But obviously you can see from this model, it's not a complete ring. It attaches either side of your spine. So that's why we always class the pelvis when we're talking about lower backs, because if you feel the crease of the top of your pelvis, you're not going that far down your lower back. So if you stopped at the pelvis, there's so many problems that can happen further down. So that's why we always class the pelvis in that. And then the other things that we've got is we've got lots of muscles. So this is what your spine will look like. And in reality, my pelvis is going to be a little bit wider than that. But actually my spine is probably exactly that size. When I've measured it before, that is pretty close to what my spine would look like. So it's actually quite small in comparison to us, but does quite a big job. So the bit that bulks it out is lots of muscles. We have big muscles, small muscles, and everything in between. So some of the small muscles are literally, about an inch, so 3 or 4 centimeters long, and then you've got some that go all the way from the top to the bottom. So you have varying different sizes that pad it out and that allow our back to do that movement. So that's just the kind of the generalized anatomy of our spine. There's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So some causes of back pain, most of them are generally kind of quite obvious. These are the kind of main ones. One is sitting all day, so being sedentary, whether that's sitting at work, sitting at home, reading books, in the garden, whatever that might be. Being sedentary for long periods of time and long periods of our life doesn't help. Our body likes movement. So if we don't have that, then things go wrong. And that's not just with our back, that's kind of with everything. The next thing is inappropriate exercise. This always, people, when we say inappropriate exercise, they think of things like sport, gym, kind of exercise from a health point of view. But our body in reality doesn't know whether we are in the gym lifting a weight off the floor, or we're swinging a golf club, or that we're lifting grandkids off the floor, or we're reaching kind of around a cupboard to get something out. So when I say inappropriate exercise, we really mean inappropriate movement. And over the years, if we do lots of inappropriate exercise or movement, then we cause problems. We either wear things down, we overuse things, we can cause kind of muscle tears, tears to things. So that's the next thing. And then postural changes. So similar to sitting all day, but it's not just sitting, our posture. So if we've got a really hunched over posture, this is the bit where everyone normally sits up and puts their shoulders back. So if we're sat at a desk all day in a kind of bad posture, if our desk isn't set up right, if we do lots of work on laptops, or if we're stood up too long, if we're stood behind counters, or if we're just walking around on our phones is quite a common one that I'm seeing a little bit more of, that rather than people walking upright, they walk around like this. So in 10 odd years, that might be a different subject that we're talking about. But posture is just the position that our body's in for the rest of the day. So all of those start to kind of run down and wear down our structures that we just spoke about. So these are the 4 most common causes of back pain that I'm going to delve into in a little bit more detail. So the first one is SIJ. So SIJ stands for sacroiliac joint dysfunction. So our sacroiliac joint is these joints either side of our spine. So it's where our pelvis attaches to our spine. So we've got our sacrum and our ilium, and it's the joint in between. We shorten it to SIJ just for ease, but that is what SIJ is. And then we've got sciatica, which everyone's heard of. We've got muscular lower back pain, and then we've got age-related changes to discs. So I'm going to go through those in a little bit more detail. So SIJ dysfunction. So people with this normally find that they get pain putting their shoes on in the morning, putting their socks over, that kind of stiffness first thing. Also stiff getting out of bed, and stiff sitting or standing makes it worse. So before I go any further, a lot of these symptoms, doesn't mean you've necessarily got this. You'll see from some of the other bits and then anything else that we talk about, you can get very, very similar symptoms. So lots of things cause stiffness, lots of things cause sharp pains, and lots of things cause aches. So, and everyone will describe a stiffness, everyone will describe a kind of a pain very differently. So these are very whistle-stop tours of what it feels like. So just because you might have this doesn't necessarily mean you've definitely got SIJ dysfunction or herniated disc or whatever. That's what we're for to help you out with it. But with something like this, it's more of those stiffnesses in the morning and stiffnesses when you're going to move after periods of being sedentary. So this happens when the joints in your lower back are stiff, overloaded, and they kind of stick together, and your back becomes very, very tight. So those joints that I pointed to through there, it's when they don't move. So obviously it's not going to move on this because they've been screwed together. But what should happen is where those screws are, that should be like a hinge, and when we're bending forward and bending backwards, that should go forwards and backwards. When we have an SIJ dysfunction, that isn't happening. So those two joints are almost fused together like it is in this model with a screw. What that does is it just means everything stops moving, everything gets really, really tight, and becomes very, very stiff and sore in the mornings. So that is SIJ dysfunction. Any questions on that one? Perfect. So then sciatica. So everyone has heard of sciatica, but a lot of people don't really know what sciatica is. It's probably one of the most common things I get when people come in with either back or leg pain is they come in or they phone up and say, I've got sciatica, can you help? More often than not, it isn't sciatica. They've just heard it, or that we've seen it on the news, or we've Googled it, or whatever. It's the most common kind of term. So what sciatica actually is, so the sciatic nerve is the biggest nerve in the body. It's actually about the kind of diameter of your thumb. In some people, it's actually bigger. So it's a lot bigger than what people think. It starts all the way up into our spine, so it starts right around where that SIJ bit is that I just pointed to, and then it goes all the way down your leg. When it gets to the back of your knee, it branches off. So you can see on this diagram, the yellow bits on here is your sciatic nerve. At various different points, it branches off into different nerves, but it starts off as your sciatic nerve. Obviously, with it being such a big nerve, if we get problems with that nerve, then it's going to cause issues, which is why it's such an irritating thing, why it's so painful, why it's so annoying, and also why it's so kind of hard to fix. People with sciatica, they generally get referred pain, so it's pain down your leg. There are other nerves that have the same sort of symptoms, but they go down a different part of your leg. So your sciatic nerve is when you get pain down the back of your leg. They're things like pins and needles, they are things like tingling, numbness, generalized aching down the back of your leg, and you normally get kind of pains when you're trying to stand up nice and straight when you're getting up. So what is actually happening is it's when the nerve is getting pinched. So the nerve can get pinched at a few places. It can either get pinched in your lower back itself, so where it comes out the spine, so where that kind of red thing is there, it can get pinched where it comes out of your spine itself, or it can be pinched in your bum. So it's most common that it gets pinched in there, and it's normally when it comes out of there and it's being pinched in your bum, it's been pinched in a muscle. There's a lot of muscles in our bum, and it's quite a convoluted area. So if any of them are tight or irritated or not working well, it will clamp around that sciatic nerve. Like when you stand on a hose pipe, if you want to stop a hose pipe from kind of water coming out the end, you put a kink in it. And that's what kind of is happening with those muscles. They're putting compression on that sciatic nerve. And then anything that goes, that sciatic nerve goes to, is going to become irritated and not working properly. So that's what sciatica is. There is something else called piriformis syndrome, which is very, very similar. You can get very similar pains down the back of your leg and in your bum. You can get the same pins and needles, but it's just slightly different. So if you've ever heard of piriformis syndrome, it's very similar to this. So then muscular. So muscular is probably the most common thing that we actually see. It's what a lot of the people that think they've got sciatica or think they've got slipped discs or herniated discs actually have, is a type of muscular lower back pain. So this feels like a band of pressure across the whole of your lower back. And it gets kind of aching into your hips, and it's also stiff when you get out of bed and aches towards the end of the day. This feels a bit more widespread, so you normally can't pinpoint it's there. It's normally feeling like it's the whole way across, like you're wearing a thick belt for various degrees. If it's really bad, this is what people feel like when my back's gone into spasm. This is also what we're classing as muscular back pain, when our back goes into these real tightnesses and spasms. This is a type of muscular lower back pain. So the causes of this is, main thing is when our big muscles are working over time. Our back muscles are being used all of the time. So they're being used when you're sat down, they're being used when you're laying down, they're being used when you're moving, obviously. They're constantly being in use. So a lot of time this comes from just you overusing those big muscles. When you overuse a muscle, they tighten up. So it's the same with any muscle. If you work it too hard, it tightens up. So we all know once if you've played a round of golf, the last couple of holes, everything just feels a little bit tight. That's when you've overused it, and it's your body telling you need to stop, have a rest, and then wait for things to settle down and go again. The second thing that normally happens is when your back has gone into a muscle spasm. So this is when your back is trying to protect itself. So it thinks there's going to be danger. And the key word with that is it thinks. It doesn't mean there is going to be danger, but your body thinks that there might be danger. So this is either picking something up or moving too quickly, moving too slowly, and it goes into a muscle spasm to protect itself. It's kind of doing its job, so that what we want our body to do is protect itself. So it has got a really good place. We don't want something nasty to happen. We don't want kind of a fracture or a disc to go. We'd prefer our muscles to go into spasm before that happens and stop it happening. So it's got a really good mechanism to protect ourselves. The problem with it is once it's first happened, it's more likely to happen again. So your body gets then scared. So it will go at the right time to start with, and then every time you then do something else, it thinks it's going to cause the same problem, and it goes into that spasm earlier and earlier. The threshold of that spasm just keeps reducing and reducing. And that's why you see a lot of people that have a muscle spasm, and then they only have one once a year, and then they start to get it twice a year, and then they start to get it every month, and then it's just stays there until they get something sorted out about it, because that threshold is being reduced. When it starts to get into a really bad state, those spasms can happen when you're just bending over to brush your teeth. So when it's a problem, it normally happens something when it's not loaded. So if you're picking a ball out of the hole, if you're putting your tea in the ground, if you're brushing your teeth, those sorts of things that there's no weight, no load, you're doing it nice and slowly, those are when it can go into spasm. And that's showing that your body is in that sensitive kind of sensitive areas, that it's just going into these spasms at a lower threshold. They aren't great at coming out of these spasms, so they're really good at locking it and stopping it and just making sure that it doesn't move any further, but they're not very good at coming out of these. Hot baths, heat, things like that help to kind of reduce them, but they're not very good at getting back to normal. So they just like to protect us and not come out of those spasms. So this one is disc problems. So as I mentioned, we've all heard kind of herniated discs. We've all heard about disc bulges, things like that. This is when you feel kind of very similar to the muscular lower back. You feel the general ache, but you also feel it's vulnerable. That's when people always say, I feel like I've got a weak back, feel like it's not going to support me. And they're very hesitant in doing things. It's when you sort of bend down, but you're bending very kind of slowly. You just don't have any confidence in it. And then this is normally followed by episodes of really intense pain. So when you do get a disc bulge or a disc change of any sort, you'll get a really, really intense pain right in the center of your back. This feels like someone's shot you. It feels like you've been stabbed. It's a really horrible sharpness in your back, but it's right in the center. It's very, very pinpoint. If it's really bad and that disc is pressing on a nerve, you can also then get sharp shooting pains down one or both of your legs. And then if it gets really, really bad, you can start to either lose feeling, or your legs just give way and they they just can't cope with you being on them, and they give way, so people kind of fall over if it's really bad. So that's kind of what it feels like. What is actually happening is these discs, so the cushions in your back start to lose their height. So as you get older, every year after you're kind of 20, 25, they start to get lower, and they get dehydrated and they get slightly smaller, which is why as you get older you lose a little bit of your height. That is a completely natural thing to happen. It's not a problematic thing to happen. It just makes it a little bit more likely for you to have problems in them, but it's a completely normal thing that should happen. When there's a problem, these discs get squashed. So they go too far, you move them too far, and they get squashed. If they get squashed too much, like what I was saying about that jam donut, they get pushed out into the tunnels. So they either get pushed out into the tunnels of the side, where the nerves come out of the side, or they get pushed out, that you can't see on here, in the middle, where our proper spinal cord is. That can happen at any age. That isn't age related. Everyone thinks it is, but it really isn't. People can have that. I had one when I was 16, 17. So it doesn't have to be age related. It can happen at any time. The interesting bit about discs is not all kind of herniated and prolapsed or bulging discs are problematic. I can't remember the exact stats, but it's something along the lines of 60% of people over the age of, I think it's over the age of 40, will have a herniated disc, but won't have any symptoms at all. So it was a big mistake from the NHS. They did a study a few years ago that they did lots of surgery when they shouldn't have done surgery on lower backs, because anyone that they had back pain, they put a guidance in that everyone would get an MRI scan. Everyone that had any sorts of pain in the back would get a scan, and then all of these scans showed up that people had various bulging discs, and then they operated on these and it didn't solve the problem. And it's because actually these bulging discs were completely normal. It's just what happens in life. So then this other study came out that they scanned, I think it was about 2,000 people. So it was a big study. And it was studying people that had no back pain whatsoever. They had no symptoms, they were healthy, they were active, of all ages. And at each age group, there was people with bulging discs, herniated discs, prolapsed discs, but without any symptoms and could still function. So just because you have got something like this doesn't really mean that much. It's only a problem if it is pressing on a nerve or causing a symptom. Cool. So a couple of things that you can do for various types of back pain. So we get asked all the time about ice or heat. It's kind of, it used to be one of the most Googled thing from a medical term, should I ice it or heat it? I don't know if it is anymore, but it used to be the most Googled thing. Generally, if something is in a real sharp, acute pain, then ice is what you use. And this is just general advice for anything. Doesn't matter if it's your back or if it's your arm, your head, whatever. If it's a sharp, shooting, stabbing, really horrible, 9+ out of 10, use ice. What ice does is it reduces the nerves and it just basically kills the pain. So ice is a painkiller. Whereas if it's something that's stiff, if it's a nasty ache, if it's a toothache type pain, if you're kind of struggling to get moving and it's kind of pain stopping you do that, then that's when we use heat. So heat just allows us to get everything warm, things become supple, and then we can get moving again. So depending on what type of back pain you have will depend on what you go to first. So if it's stiff or achy or toothache type feeling, heat. If it's a sharp, stabby, horrible numbness, ice is the best thing to use. The next thing is resting. So resting is one of the worst things you can possibly do. So with back pain, you used to be told, go lay on a plank of wood for 6 weeks and it will solve it. That was one of the worst things that we could ever do, and obviously we've stopped doing that a little while ago. But resting is possibly the worst thing with any of these kind of problems, even quite nasty problems. Active rest is what we class it as now, so you should be moving within your limits. Even if your limits are tiny, even if you can't move very far, even if it's only very small kind of bits, whilst you're sat in a chair, whilst you're lying in bed, or just whilst you're pottering around the house, moving is what we're talking about when we're saying rest. So complete rest is an absolute no-go for things like this. Painkillers. Painkillers is always a bit of a tricky one. Painkillers have got their place, but obviously they're what they say on the tin. They're killing the pain. They're not having any effect to what is going on in the actual pathology of the actual injury. So painkillers are good, but you have to be very mindful of them if you're using painkillers to get through something. So if you're using them to get through a round of golf, if you're using them to get kind of through the day, then you need to get it looked at to see if that's the right thing to do, especially if you start to become regular with painkillers. you need to be solving the problem. Even so, painkillers, a lot of people think either paracetamol or ibuprofen. Ibuprofen isn't really a painkiller, it's more of an anti-inflammatory, so it more just reduces the inflammation, which can be quite dangerous because a lot of the inflammatory chemicals that our body's trying to send to places actually is what helps it heal. So sometimes it isn't the right thing to do. So anyone that's taking them regularly to get through something, a sport or just get through the day, then you need to be mindful of it. And the other thing that doesn't help is wrong exercises. So many exercises out there in the world, on the telly, on YouTube, on sort of various different sheets of exercises and booklets and all of that kinds of stuff. If you're doing the wrong thing, it's going to make it worse. That also is the same with whatever sport you might be doing. So something like golf, if you're not working on your swing, not working on your technique, then no matter what we do otherwise, we're not going to fix it, because you're just going to then break every time you go back to that. So wrong exercise and exercises is really key to avoid. Right, so I've gone through that. So the other thing on the resting is micro breaks. So and again, it's very similar with most injuries, most kind of problems. We shouldn't be, if you're in pain, when you move, you shouldn't move until something is sore and it stops you. We should move until you can start to feel something, and then that's when we stop. Doesn't mean you've stopped and you shouldn't carry on. It just means that's stopped, have a break, and then go on again. You get some quite kind of progressive issues if you just work yourself until it is painful, until you can't kind of go anymore, until you have to take painkillers and then you stop. That is just going to make whatever problem you have a lot worse. So what we should do is take small breaks. So if we know it's going to be very sore after 10, 20, 30 minutes of walking, then what we do is we stop 5 minutes before, have a break, and then we go again. Same with golf. If you know it's going to be really sore, kind of doing a full round, then do 9, have a break, sit down, and then go again. Or however many holes you can get through. The important thing is you don't stop, because it's a slippery slope if you stop completely. So we'll just go briefly what we can do to help things, and then we can talk through anyone's specific problems or what we can solve with that. So at More Performance, we do a few things. So the first thing is in this room. It's a stretching and mobility class. Our next one starts on the 10th of September. 10th of September. In here on a Thursday evening. We're running it as courses, so it's a 6-week course, and then we have a break, and then we do another 6-week course. So this one starts on the 10th of September. It's in here. It's a very gentle but quite a tiring course. We go through the philosophies of stretching. It's a very different type of stretching than you've probably ever done. It's more of long form stretching. So we hold some of these stretches for kind of 5 and up to 10 minutes. So it's a very different philosophy that helps us to improve our mobility long term, rather than just the short term stretching. A lot of stretching we know and that we've done in the past, you're doing warm-up stretches. So you're doing stretches that just get something going to be able to do an activity. They don't actually change the length of any of those tissues you're stretching. They're just doing it to warm up and go. Whereas what this does is it gives you some of the bits, some of the tools to be able to stretch and make long-term gains in your flexibility and mobility. So that's the first one we do. So that's 10th of September, Thursday evenings in this room. The next thing we've got on that top right is something called StimPod. This is my favourite gadget that I think I've ever got. It's a really cool piece of kit. There's only about 12 clinics in the country that currently use it, so it's quite new. It's called neuromodulation, fancy word for putting electrical current through nerves. What it does is it puts this current through very, very specific nerves, and it's a special type of current that stimulates those nerves to actually heal themselves. So nerves heal incredibly slowly, and sometimes they don't heal at all. There's some research that says that it grows slower than a human hair, some of these nerves, so some places say even longer. So nerves really struggle to heal. We didn't used to have anything that would actually heal nerves that were almost completely destroyed, severed or cut, but now this will actually stimulate that healing process for nerves. It's very, very specific. It's very different from TENS. So lots of people think it's like a TENS machine. If you've ever used TENS machine for back pain or for pregnancies, things like that, TENS machines have been around for years. They use very broad current, so TENS are still putting current through things, but it's a very superficial current, it's very broad, whereas this is very specific. We put it through the exact nerve that we're trying to get, and we can be very deep with it. So we've got access to that. So that's for things like sciatica, for any pins and needles, any numbnesses, also for things like neuropathy. So anyone that's kind of got diabetic neuropathies or post-chemo neuropathies or things that their feet or hands have ever gone numb with, that is absolutely fantastic to sort that out. A couple of other bits we do various other bits of kind of manual therapy of different joint mobilizations. We do various different forms of massage. We do acupuncture. We do 3D printed orthotics, and all sorts of other bits in the clinic. So as I said at the start, we're very tailored to what people need, and we just create a plan around what's the right thing for people. So any of the treatment methods, you can't book just a treatment method, so we don't just have an acupuncture appointment. You can't just phone us up and say, can I book an acupuncture appointment, because we don't know that's the right thing for you. So what we do with everyone is that we get everyone in for an initial assessment, and that we assess everything, talk through what's going on, and see which is the relevant thing for you. It might be a combination of all of them. It might just be one of them, but we need to make sure it's the right thing for you. And the other thing we do is we have various referral pathways. So we can refer people for private MRI scans or towards private consultants or things like that, if that's what we need. So if we can't help it, we're not afraid of saying, like, just go to this place. We can't help it. If you want to go down the NHS route, we'll help you and guide you through that route. If you want to go through the private route, we can refer you and help you down that route. So we have lots of people that we can't help, unfortunately, but we are quite happy to send them. We won't just try things for the sake of it. Everything has got to be for a reason. If not, we will refer people to the right places. No one should really be in pain unless you've done something. There's always stuff nowadays that can be done to reduce pains, reduce symptoms, no matter what stuff is going on. So it's really important that any aches and pains get sorted.
Do you do an assessment before the stretching class, or does the stretching, is that just basically good for everybody?
That's pretty much good for everyone. As long as you can kind of get off and on the floor, then you're absolutely fine. A lot of it is floor-based and mat-based stuff, so it's very, very gentle and it's long for stretching. So you can pretty much.
And Andrew uses props as well, so for people, like, I can't touch my toes, so I have a prop that allows me to hold my weight on, take the weight off, and it allows starting to stretch better. So it's, the props
Yeah.
really help. You can substitute those at home for a step, or if you need to use straps, you can use a towel at home. So it's very functional.
Yeah,
In
and
other classes, I mean, in other places, I can't happen to do that.
no, just in here. So we do sometimes change the time or the day that we do it. So at the moment we're doing it on Thursday night, so that sort of time. But no, at the moment we're just doing it here at Thursday. But it is a small group, so we limit it to 12 maximum. That way Andrew can make sure everything is individual. So if you do struggle with anything, then he changes it. There's lots of progressions and regressions to everything that he does. So there's very few people that wouldn't be able to do it. So if you don't know us and you've never seen us before, we might ask a few questions just to make sure. Yeah. Perfect. Cool. Well, I will leave it there. I can hang around for a little bit whilst I'm doing this. So if anyone has any specific questions or talking about anything, then just let me know. We've got some goodie bags, so do just make sure you grab yourself a goodie bag. They're new, so they are very exclusive. So make sure you grab those. And if you need anything else, then just let us know. But yeah, thank you very much.
With strength and spirit seize the day. Where there's a will, there's a way. Feeling pain-free, active and free. A healthy future for you and me. Where there's a will, there's a way.